Hi everyone. I had to make some Christmas stockings for a project, and I have the Christmas stocking die for the Accuquilt Studio Cutter. So mine is older, or my set of dies is older. So I'm trying to keep the glare down because the glare is coming through there. So here's the stocking. And then here's the cuff. And the nice thing about this set is the cuff doesn't cut along here where the fabric's going to fold. So I can make this longer, I guess, and I would just have to extend out on my cut. But for today, for this one, I'll do it exactly. But a fold goes here. And this is different from the other Accuquilt stocking dies. They have you cutting a piece, two pieces, and folding the edge and so forth. So this one has a place so that you have a single layer cuff. So I'm going to show you how I do mine. Like I said, fortunately I have this, but I'm going to this die for the cuff. But if you have the other Accuquilt dies, instead of using the cuff, I'm going to show you a different way, to me an easier way to do it, and I'll do it this way first, and then I'll show you how you figure out your cuff, which is very easy. So I'm going to set this cuff aside for the moment. And I'm going to lay this down. Well, I guess I can do it here. If I turn it over, it's hard for you to see. So I'm going to leave it this way. This obviously is the back, not the part you cut. You cut on the foam side. But I wanted you to see how much fabric you need. So if I measure the entire die, it's 9.5 inches. So I want to measure, I go about 1/4 of an inch from that edge of that heel, and I'm going to move down. Okay, so I've got the 1/4 inch past the edge of the heel because that's the furthest out spot, and to 1/4 past the toe. So 9 inches, so that's a 1/4 yard of fabric will do the trick. We just got to measure this way, which I'm sure is going to be fine. So a 1/4 yard of fabric is 9 inches by 42. I always say 40 because it could be 42, it could be 41, but it's never less than 40. So I need to have, if I fold my fabric, I need to have 20 inches. I have 20 inches, I'm sorry. So when I measure in this direction, so my ruler is, and I'm going, and this die, you would go measure edge to edge of the wooden part because the die practically goes right to the edge. So I have 12 inches and 3. So I need 15 inches by 9 inches of fabric. And I need 2 pieces, the front and the back. And again, if you have a 1/4 yard of fabric, that's plenty because you have, what did I say, 15 is 30, and you have 40 inches or more of fabric. But what I want you to pay attention to, and I'm not sure if this one is, but if you have directional fabric, you want to make sure that both sides are going in the same direction. So you may have to cut your fabric and turn it to have everybody going the same way. This one, let me see. Is this fabric? I'm trying to see here's the big joy words, and they're going in different, so this joy is going this horizontal. This one's vertical. So if I turn this and I look at it, while there are some joys that go vertical, there's a lot more that are horizontal. So I'm almost thinking I need to go this way. Now I have a 1/2 yard of fabric. So I have enough to go in either direction. So if you're not sure, get yourself a half a yard of fabric and you could make 2 out of it. So I really think that my eye sees, it sounds funny, my eye sees more joy correctly this way. So I'm running the edge of the salvage than it does every time I turn this fabric so that I would be looking from here. I see all these big joy words going the other way. So I'm going to do mine this way. So what I need to do is, I don't need to worry about cutting off the salvage, but what I need to do, and this is going to be important to make this really easy to sew. I want to put my right sides together. And the nice thing with the studio is I can just tuck this fabric all in right here. So let me set this down now. I don't have to cut anything to make sure it's right. I just want to make sure this salvage is hanging off that edge. So I would be this way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over so I can set it up just how it would be. So I want, no matter what, you want your right sides of your fabric together, even if you're using the other dies. Okay? So I have that ready. Now, I'm going to do a lining. So I have some fabric for my lining. So again, I'm going to look at this, and I don't think it matters. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it in the same direction as this one, so I have the same leftover. So you really want to pick, a fabric that, like I always say, you want to pick a fabric that doesn't matter for your lining. And what I mean is it doesn't have to be your favorite one. If you have a Christmas fabric and it's not your favorite, or you want a plain fabric, that's the time to use it for your lining. So I'm going to just place this extra fabric is in my tray. I'm going to just turn this on a little bit of an angle because I like to put run my dies through on the angle. So review, right sides for the lining and right sides together for the stocking. And you can do this exact same thing with the other Accuquilt stocking dies. So let me push my tray up. And it goes through pretty easy. I have to say, I have the little go. I think my little go is harder to crank than this studio is. And let me just show you a couple of things. Yeah, I only have so much room here. Oh, sorry, my nose is in your way. So let me get this off. And what I wanted to show you was, when you're not using it, this is the Studio 2. When you're not using this, both sides fold up. And you can, it takes up that much less room. Also, if you like this setup, they make an adapter for all the regular green Accuquilt dies that you use on the Go and the Go Big and the Go Baby. They make an adapter that just sits in the tray. And a lot of times you can get this, I want to say 50% off, 40% off. They'll have sales now and again. I'll put a link below to the Accuquilt site for you. Okay, so let me bring my die over. My die over. Let me scoot this back. There we go. There we go. So now you can see. So here's my stocking. And I want to make sure, okay, I had my pins a minute ago. Here I am reaching in your way again. I'm going to pin this before I even pick it up because I'm going to stitch this all at one time. And I'm just going to put enough pins in to hold everybody in place. Oh, what did I do here? Oh, I know. Okay, so here's a lesson for you. So I didn't cut all the way across. And if you notice when I started to crank, my clear part started to move. So if this isn't on with your die, it's not going to cut. So let me see if I can just fix that. And I might as well fix it with you because this could happen to you as well. I always say it, whatever happens to me, it's going to happen to somebody else too. And I don't mean that, I just mean it happens to all of us. It's the easiest way to say that. I didn't want it to sound like, well, I'm not the only one this happens to. Okay, so I just want to make sure. I don't need to run it all the way through. I need to run it through enough to get this. So I need to make sure because I pulled the whole thing down. I'm going to get the stocking. I'm lining the stocking up along here. Oh, couldn't figure out why I couldn't move my fabric. I put my die down on top of it. There we go. I would probably just normally just cut across. But if you want to, well, let me do this. My fabrics weren't lining up. So let's get this one back where he belongs. And again, I'm only concerned with cutting right along here. Almost made it. And again, it would probably be easier just to take your rotary cutter. But for those that might not have a rotary cutter or just don't want to use a rotary cutter, let's see if we can get that nice and straight. So, like I said, I'm only going to concern myself with that part. Okay. So I only need to roll her in a little ways and then I can roll her back. And now it's all set. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it. And I'll take it off and get ready for the cuff. Okay, I did want to show you this, this little tip before I went any further. So you can see I have plenty of fabric left to do another stocking. If you're running close, can you see where that fold is? So that was the natural fold of the fabric that I didn't iron out. But you're going to need to, if you need to get to this edge, because if you see when I put it back, do you see how it's got that little dip in? And that's because the fold is going down instead of up. And we do want to keep this right sides together just for ease of sewing. But I have plenty of room, so I can go ahead. See, I still have fabric out here. And because the fold is out here, I'll have even more fabric. That's why I wanted to start with the salvage on that side and keep the fold over here. So I'll do another one. I'm trying to find, so here's the toe. The toe is covered. There's plenty there for the toe because I've got, let me hold this up. There's plenty there for the toe. So I just want to come in as far as I can where this little indent is. So I'll come in to where I can start to see the line of the cut. I moved up further because I can get closer with the, let's see if I can show you with this one. I can get closer with the die to this section here. I know I skimp where I can. And then I'll show you. So let me see how far I can move this down. I don't want to skimp too close. Don't go too close. Every time I go too close and think I'm saving, eighth of an inch of fabric, I end up having to do the whole thing over again. Okay, so while I'm at it, I might as well cut another stocking. And if I just take that off, I think I can get it back through okay. I wouldn't recommend doing it that way, but so this time I got it right. So you would normally just take it off from that side. My light's right there, so it's a little difficult. And again, I'm going to put a few pins in. So I only put in 3. If you want to pin more, wait until you have it off of here because you've got those steel blades there. You don't want to be monkeying around next to those. And every once in a while, I do with my little scissors, you'll get a thread that just doesn't cut, and it's a single thread, but don't pull it because that'd be like putting a run. You'll put a snag or a run in your fabric. And I can see it's just one thread. Okay, so there's our 2 stockings, and I'm just going to cut this fabric off. So to me, that's my waist. And I still have a bunch of fabric down here. And because I did this on the fold, let me just open one of them. I have quite a bit left. So if you had a yard of fabric you were working with, which would give you 4 stockings, having this left, you would probably end up with another full stocking. It's like a special treat inside. But I have all this fabric left from my half yard. So I'm just going to set these aside. And I'm going to turn this over. So if you don't have the separate cuff, if you're working with the Accuquilt newest, I call them the green dies they're on that green plastic. And I think even the new Studio is one piece. If you measure this distance on whatever stocking you have, which is about 6 inches across. Now, remember, this die is going to be sewn, this stocking, when you cut it, has to be sewn on this side and this side. So you don't have to add in the seam allowance to the cuff because it's already here in the stocking. So at 6 inches, you need to go all the way around, which is 12. And you're actually going to have, it's going to be a little bigger, and you can shorten it if you want to, but I suggest you wait because some people like the cuff to be come out a little more, and you can do that. But you want one piece that is 12 inches, and then your width of your cuff, remember, has to be doubled because we're going to fold it. So if you want let's see what this one is. So we'll go by this one. Remember, on this die, it's already doubled. Oh, so let's see. So this is doubled, so it's 11 and a half. So if your Christmas stocking die measures 12, and you're going to do the cuff the way that I do it, is one piece folded, you're going to cut your strip 11 and a half, and then you're going to cut it, that's 4 1/4 and 4 1/4, about 8 and a half, because it's going to be folded over, and then you're going to have a seam. And again, you can make your cuff whatever size you want. And if you're going to embroider on it, like with your embroidery machine, make sure that you'll see as we go on, this fold will be the top of the cuff. So you're going to want to embroider so that this the cut side would be the part facing the stocking. So your word would or your name would come across here just as you see it. Don't put it on the other side upside down or right side up. It'd have to be upside down. So your piece of fabric will be this way. I got a piece of paper here. So we're going to pretend this is the fold of the cuff. This is the part that's going to sew to the stocking. So I want you to wait until you see how I do the cuff onto the stocking before you determine which way your word needs to be. And it's not hard, it just takes a second. So it just takes watching mine, and then we'll discuss that again. But you want to do your embroidery before you put your cuff on, because that way, because it's folded, the embroidery stitches will be hidden in the inside. You won't see them because this cuff being folded in half is the same on the inside of the stocking as the outside, and with the lining also. But the cuff will hide, the fold will hide the stitches. I hope that going on that way didn't mesh up too much. Okay, so I'm going to do my cuff next, and let's see what I have for fabric. So this one, I just got a 1/4 yard. Probably wasn't my best idea, but and I didn't have my die information with me, of course. So let's see how that works. I'll go this way. Let's see how that works if I take a 1/4 yard, which is 9 inches, and I'm going to place it there. It is on a bit of an angle, so, and I'm just doing it on this side so you can see the markings, because these are the actual blades on the other side, so it's the exact markings, so it makes it easy for you to see it. I'm going to put the salvage out past the cut lines. So what I like to do is I like to bring my fabric so I can see where I need to go and then just bring it down. So yes, that 1/4 yard, let's see how many it'll make. 1, 2, I think you might be able to get three cuffs out of that. Let's see. 1, 2. Oh yeah, easily. So you can get 3 cuffs out of a 1/4 yard. I only need 2, so I'm gonna go ahead and lay mine out. Oh, didn't mean to bang on you there. So my lines are here. I know they're hard for you to see. I tried to mark it with something so you could see it, and I couldn't find anything that worked. I couldn't find my big magic marker. So I tried some other stuff, and you can easily see it when you're in person on your own. So, but remember, I got to have my fold up that way. So here's my fold. I brought it up. Can you see my line is right there? So I got the salvage. I want to make sure that's passed. I'm going to bring this down now, come over a little bit, and I'm going to come down to right about I'm feeling the blades. So the edge of my blades are right here. So the blade goes down, across, and up the other side. So I'm going to fold one over. And I'm making sure that I have a little bit, let's see if you can see, a little bit to cut off. Don't get too skimpy now. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my die around so that I can hang this part into my tray. So my extra is right here. Let me see if I can push this over a little bit. There we go. So you can see it's right here, and it's in my tray. Now, I've got that fold there, and if you were in my class, I'd get after you for not ironing that, pressing that out. But we want to get it done. We want to get it done on the video quickly. Sorry about that. So I don't need this big plastic. I could use it. It's okay because it covers the whole die. But I do have a smaller one that I can put on there. Cut-wise, it's not going to make any difference. I just like to use all my plastics equally. I don't want anyone to feel left out. And you can see, I mean, I'm barely moving the. I mean, it takes so little to turn that crank. And I'm just moving that down just so I can get this off. So let me do that. I'll do that right up here. So where's my... Now, I went a little past with my fold, and it was just like barely a stitch. I just wanted to make sure I had... I didn't want to be below where I was. So there's my waist, and I still got enough to do another one or do something else with it. So we don't have to worry about pinning these, because we have one for each one. So let me finish this up, and I will be right back. Okay, I did want to take a minute to show you because I only showed you halfway. This folds up just like that, and the bottom of the widest point is maybe 11 inches, and it's probably 12, 15 inches tall. So if you have a little place to store it. And see, here's the crank that, it almost feels the same when I have something in it as when I don't have something in it. So I just wanted to show you how that folds up. Okay, so it's time to start sewing. I have to say, and this happens to me because I don't have the die out all the time, but it happens to me every time I do. So because this cuff is going to be in half is the front, half is the back, and then you look at it and you go, oh, geez, that doesn't look like it's going to work. But it is. If you hold it up to your stocking, it's not going to reach across edge to edge, because we still have to put seams in both sides of the stocking, and the cuff only has a seam on one side. So don't panic. I do that myself. Panic. Okay, so let's set the cuff aside for the moment. I want you to know I did go and iron out my fold. And you're going to need some ribbon for the hanger. And I was going through I have one little drawer that just has odds and ends, and I found this. I can't even tell you when I might have bought it. So Michael's, I think, and it's grosgrain, so it won't ravel, which is nice. So I think, and it's different sizes, and you can make you can have your ribbon any size you want. Let me see. What do I want? Can't remember what my fabric looked like. So I don't think I want the green stripe. I'm going to go with this smaller one, and I'm going to cut off about let's see, I'm measuring. Let's say I'm going to cut off about 5.5, I guess. I couldn't decide whether I wanted 5 or 6, so let's go 5.5. So I'm going to cut a piece that's 5.5, and you'll have to bear with me. I've got my camera so that I can zoom in when I sew. So I cut a piece about 5.5, and you'll see when you do your stocking, and depending how you're going to hang it. This is a smaller stocking, so if you have a big tree, you might want to hang it on the tree. You might want this to be bigger to go over the branch, or whatever the case may be. And it's an easy fix. And then once you know what size you want them, then you can do them all the same, because that's another one of those personal preference things. So I'm just going to put that and the cuff together right there, the cuff and the ribbon. So now we have our stocking, and remember, I only pinned it in 3 places, and I'm not going to pin it anymore. And we're going to leave it together. And just to go over this again, when you cut, you have right sides of the lining together, and then right sides of the outside are together. And we're going to stitch down and around and up. This has to stay open. Think of it as you can't put your foot in if you close it up. So we're going down and around. And we want about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to see if I can zoom in closer. And let's see if I can get closer to myself. It was a little far away. Let's see. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. I was trying to lower it a little more. Got so many knobs on my tripod. I don't know who goes to what. There we go. And if I come in a little more, there we go. That's pretty close. Now, I'm working on you can see, I'm working on a machine. I did this on purpose. I'm working on my smallest machine. This is about 5 inches. So, because I want you to see, even on a smaller machine, how you can do the cuff. Now, if I take this part off to have a free arm, it's too fat, and most free arms they're pretty fat. Going down is what I mean. So this wouldn't be so bad, but it's this distance down again. So you can see down here. So I really, even on my big machine, use the free arm. It's just easier to do it always the same way. Okay, so I'm going to start stitching here. I'm going to lock the stitch, and when I get around the other side, I'm going to lock the stitch. Now this has curves. Don't be all nervous. Let me see if I can move a little. Trying to move a little closer to myself here. And let's see if we can get in a little. Okay. So I'm stitching. Let's see if I can. I'm stitching. Let me get a pointer here. I'm going to be stitching. My needle's in the middle. So this foot is either brother or baby lock. Janomi's about the same. But my needle's in the center. This is the J foot on the brother and baby lock. It's the A foot on the Janomi. And you see how this is metal right here. So my seam allowance, I'm running my fabric just to see how you can see this edge is metal and then it's plastic. So my eye is looking right here, and I'm running my fabric to the edge, to the left edge of the metal, or the right edge of the clear, depending on which way you look at it. And you can pick your spot. Don't look at the needle. It's too late. Your eyeball should be right up here, and keep your eyeballs right there. And you really have to train yourself to do that, because our natural inclination is to look at the stitch, the needle, and it's too late then. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit so I can bring the machine a little closer to me. And let's see, hold on. There, I think you can see that. Hopefully my hands won't distort. I'm only laughing because I can't see over here. I'm way over to the right. So I'm going to stand, and hopefully I won't cast too much of a shadow on you. Let's see. Oh, no, that's my arm coming right over. Yeah, I was turning the light. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to have my fabric is just under my needle. You can see that my fabric is right at the edge. It's not over here at the edge of the foot. It's in a little ways. If you have the 1/4 inch mark, you can go by that. Just that you want to see the 4. See how you can see the 4? Okay, so if you have bobbin cover. If you have a baby long brother, excuse me, and there's no marks at all on it, generally that's for embroidery, but you can buy one of these with the marks on it because they'll also get worn off too. Okay, so let's see if I can do this without getting my arms in your way. Now that I've moved, I've got to get my pedal. I always love using my pedal while I'm standing. It's one of those things you kind of have to get used to. Okay, let's see if I can keep out of the way. So I'm going to start and just do a few back stitches. Now, I'm going to go a little fast only because I don't want you to have to stare at me going slow. But you go the speed you want. I will tell you that if you go too slow, it's harder to stitch. And fast stitching doesn't make good stitching, so don't try to be the speed demon. And I'm looking right here the whole time, not back here. If I feel like my fabric is puckering, I just need to lift my foot and let it relax. If you have a machine that has pivot, when you take your foot off the pedal, the foot goes up and the needle goes down and then the foot goes up, and that's great. But I purposefully picked this one. So I got a pin coming up, and I'm just making sure that my heel, everybody in the heel, all the fabrics are lined up. They don't have to be perfect, but you don't want to miss anyone. So I'm on a curve. All I care about is looking right here. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can keep my fingers out of your way. So see, I went around that curve pretty easy because I just kept my eye right up here. It doesn't matter what's going on down here. If this is good, there shouldn't be any issue back here. If you have a machine that you're back here tugging on your fabric to pull it through, get a new machine. No machine should have to have your help pulling the fabric through. And I know that sounds kind of mean, get a new machine, but I've taught so many people that were a little thriftier than they needed to be on a machine, and they just had a harder time sewing and didn't enjoy it. So I know we all have a budget, especially now we all have a budget. Not that we didn't before, but it's Christmas time and all that. But if you're ever going to get a new machine, please, not Joann's, not Walmart, not Amazon. It's not made the same. Go to a dealer where you'll get lessons and support, but also you'll get a machine that's going to last you. And always try to, if you can, buy more machine than you think you need, because you'll grow into it instead of growing out of it. So hopefully that helps you out. So now I'm curving to the other direction. Oops, and I wasn't paying attention. I got to get my fabric over there. Oh. I'm on an angle, so I'm trying to actually watch the monitor. And all I'm doing is kind of turning my hand. And if you need to stop, lift your foot to get it situated. Don't try to do it all without stopping. And I can see that my fabrics are getting out of line. And I'm going to show you what I mean, because this will happen to you. So we're almost done all the curves. I'm going to zoom back a little bit to give you more of a look of what the actual stocking is. So again, I'm still looking at that same spot. I'm making sure that all my fabrics are lined up, and I'm going to show you down here. I think one is off and what we can do about that. Now, once I start coming around this corner, I can lift, turn a little, because I'm still on the curve. Lift, turn a little. All right. Once my needle's down and the rest of the way is straight, I can go ahead and lift and then turn this so it's straight. And I'm going to get that pin out of the way. And remember, I'm going to lock it at the end. Okay, so I'm going to move this for a second. And let's zoom back. There we go. And let's see. Okay, so I made it okay. Can you see right here? I came to that edge. So as long as I got like 1/8 of an inch, I'm okay. But if I didn't, pull out from like unstitch from here to here and fix it. Hopefully, you don't have to undo the whole thing, and just be a little more careful than I was. But I'm okay there because I caught enough, and I'm not going to be wearing it for a sock. So if you're not sure, just come in and stitch just a little bit inside of your first stitching. Okay, so now, let me move this for a second, and I'm going to zoom in again. Oh, wrong way. Here we go. And whenever you're working on curves, you need to cut your fabric, snip it. And that just helps the fabric lay flatter. So if you have two ways you can do this. You can, let me see if I can get in even closer. Where am I here? You can, if you're just learning how to do this, put your scissor on and make sure you see how the point of my scissor is not quite to the stitches, and snip. And make sure you're getting all 4 pieces. Okay? So if you put your scissors on, and the edge of your scissor is not hitting that stitching, then you can't go wrong. Once you get a little better at it, because you really most of the time want to cut with your scissor in here, you just have to learn, let's see if I can get in you just have to learn to, where was I here? Stop before and it isn't a question of, let me get as close as I can. Let's see which way we want to be here. There we are. See, I'm not up to the edge of the stitch of the seam. I'm just close to it. Oh, so, where am I? Here's where I was when I said, I'm going wrong, and look what I did. So that would show on the other side. So all I need to do, when I turn it right side out, I'd have like a little hiccup going on. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just, and you see it? You see I came out and then in? All I'm going to do is just make that a little smoother. And since I'm going inside of these stitches this way, I don't need to undo anything. I just got to match up where I was. Let me see if I can stand over it here. And I'm going to make sure I lock the stitch there. And then I'm just going to come down and smooth it out. And then make sure I lock the stitch there as well. So now you can see there's my old stitching, and here's my nice smooth one. I don't need to undo this because it's out in the seam allowance. It doesn't matter. So don't waste your time undoing something that you don't need to. It'll just make you grumble. So I'm going to just keep going along here. And I'm going about every 1/4 inch, I guess, maybe a little more. Where you have more fabric, a more tighter curve, you might do more closer together, but don't do them too close together. And make sure you have if you've got this down on the table, make sure you've got all your layers. I did that one time. I was going along and I only had three of the fabrics, not the fourth one for some reason. So then I had to go back and fix that. And I'm just going up until the end of that curve. So I'm going from here all the way around to here. I think I did. Yep, I'm all done. Okay, so let me back this up a little bit. Oh, sorry. And I'm just going to give this a little press. Because if we sew, we press. And you could do that before you do your clipping or after, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to check and make sure that all the way around, I've got everybody. Okay? So now you're sitting there going, well, how the heck is that going to work? Oh, move in just a little more. There we go. What I'm going to do is I want to reach in. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3 places I can reach in. I want to reach in, put my hand between the 2 lining fabrics. So here's the lining fabric, right sides together. I'm going to reach in and pull this right side out. I know it'll be inside out, but we're pulling it right side out to the inside. How's that? And I'm just going to push that out a ways for the moment. So what I'm looking at now, to know this is right, this is my lining. So I have my lining the right side out here, and if I flip it out, it's here. If I look inside, okay, and I mean, I don't want to go between these 2, and I don't want to go between these 2. I've got 2 fabrics on each of my fingers that I pinch. This is the right side. Okay? So double check. Lining, the right side of the lining on both sides should be showing. All right, I'm going to go in, and I want to make sure I go in with my point turner. My hand is going in the right side of the stocking. And I just want to push everybody out where they belong. I'm not going to worry about it being perfect because I got to still turn my stocking right side out. Okay? If you have puckering along here, then you didn't trim enough. You didn't do enough little clips. Okay? So we're going to just leave that for the moment. And now we're going to work on our cuff. So I don't have to be quite so close this time. So here's our cuff. Off the die, it's just the same as it's off the die. If you cut your own, you should still be the same way. Your fabric should be folded. You want wrong sides together. Okay, so if you've got right sides together, make it wrong sides together. We want to open this up because we need to make a circle. And this is the short side. This is the long side. We're going to take our 2 short sides. And we can put a couple of pins in. Let me move my pins a little closer here. So if you put more than 3 pins in, I'm going to stop over and take your pins away from you. Just kidding. but that's plenty enough pins. Okay, so this was the short side. Now this looks shorter now, but it's because it's folded in half. So if you look, here's the crease of your fold. So your crease of your fold should be going vertical, and we're going to stitch horizontal. Okay, it just, once you fold it and pin it, then you're going, okay, maybe I'm supposed to be stitching over here. No, you're stitching over on this side. So here's the top fold of the cuff going in the vertical, and we're sewing along the horizontal. So you're not going to sew in line with that fold. Hope that helps you. Well, I mean in line with the fold here. Stab myself with a pin. Okay, and again, I'm going to use that same seam allowance that I used before. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches and then back stitch. And I'm over on the left, so I'm over here. So hopefully I've got it straight, but for the distance I want. It's about 1/4 of an inch. And then at the end, I'm going to lock it again. Okay, so let me move this again. So we're going to take and open this up, and we want to press this seam open. So first, we're just going to press, and you'll notice if you were a little wrinkly or gathery, puckery, it should have gone away the second you did this ironing. Okay, now I'm going to turn this. And if you have a big iron, just use the front of it, because you don't want to put creases here. Excuse me. We just want them down the middle. If you have, let's see if I got mine handy here. If you have one of these guys, which is for sleeves, and you don't have to work on sleeves to like it. And see how this goes right on? And see, now you're not creasing anything. No matter how big your iron is, you're not putting a crease in it. I'll look it up and put a link in if I can find one of these. It's a sleeve press. Wasn't that handy? Sometimes, can't find them anymore, but sometimes yard sale, Goodwill somewhere, you can get a ham, which is just a stuffed, the normal ham for sewing is a stuffed piece of, a stuffed fabric that looks like the shape of a ham. They sometimes will make them, and I haven't seen any for sale online in the last year, that are about this shape and maybe about this long, and they're like a cylinder. So or maybe we'll do a video sometime, we'll make our own. So it's just like a round tube, but it's stuffed really, really tightly, really mashed in there, because you don't want to keep flattening it out. But I do believe they still make these, and this folds up. Let me see if I can do it. So see, it sits flat. And then this little piece goes right in there to lock it. But it is handy. Okay, so now we've got our sleeve. We've pressed that seam open. Now we need to get it back folded. The easiest way to do it is kind of do it like this. Wrong sides together. And I matched up my seam again. I want to make sure the raw edges are all equal. So see my raw edge for both pieces. And now it's sitting nice and flat. Okay, here's our seam. What I want you to do is, your seam is on one side. Put your finger inside the whole way there. And just make sure your inside fabric and your outside fabric. And I just kind of scooch it with my fingers. So you want your raw edges to be equal. So then seam is at one end, and at the other end, the opposite end, just put a pin. So this pin, if I put my seam to the center, we should have equal distance on either side. This is just to make it easier to put it on your stocking. Okay, so now we have our stocking with the lining side out. So now we got to put our ribbon on. What did I do with my ribbon? There's my ribbon. So I'm going to fold my ribbon in half, wrong sides together. And back of my stocking on the wrong side. And I can tell you, I do this wrong most of the time because I think it goes on the right side, but it's on the wrong side or on the lining side. And I'm going to stick that ribbon up. See how it's about, I don't know, ½ inch or so above? And that's why I said you can adjust your ribbon to whatever you want. And I want to line my ribbon up with that seam. And all I'm going to do is, and it's easier to do it from this side, make sure that my stocking is properly opened. So when I turned it, you see how that's the wrong side of a fabric? That's not the right place. You always want to see right sides and right sides, okay? So I'm going to line this ribbon up. I'm on the lining side, but in order for me to stitch it, I've got to stitch it from the inside. So if you want to put a pin in it, I'm going to put the pin down a little further. I'm going to make sure I caught the ribbon there. Now I want to lay this nice and flat. Bring this in a little ways. So it doesn't matter what the rest of my stocking is doing. I just want to know it's flat where I'm going to sew. And I'm just going to sew, I'm just tacking the ribbon down. So I'm about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of my fabric. So my fabric is, the edge of my fabric is practically in the middle of my foot. And I don't need to back stitch. I'm just going to put a few stitches in. And that just holds that ribbon in place for when we put the cuff on. Okay? So here's how it looks. I'm going to leave this for now because that way I can always keep an eye on my ribbon is not up to no good, up to trouble. So now I need my cuff. I've lost my cuff. Oh, there it is. Now my cuff has both right sides, so there's no wrong way to put this on as long as you have your right sides are on both sides. Your wrong sides are facing each other. You can't see them. I'm going to take where the seam is. I'm going to put my stocking inside, and I'm going to match up the back seam of the stocking, and you can see my ribbons there, with the seam of the cuff. And I want to make sure when I pin, I've got right sides on the inside, not one of those one fabric here and 3 on the other side. And I'm going to pin this And don't try to pin right where the seam is. It's too hard. Just come over here a little ways. Okay? Then I'm going to go to the opposite side where the pin is. And this pin on my cuff should line up with the seam of the stocking. And again, make sure you open it, that this is your right side of your stocking. And I'm going to pin again right next to the seam. I don't need to pin on the seam. Now, if I want to, I can put in 2 more pins so that I've pinned it in quarters. I just want to make sure that my 2 lining raw edges are lined up. Put your fingers in this and kind of pull it taut. If you've got way too much cuff fabric and not enough stocking fabric, that means you did too big a seam on the stocking or too little seam on the cuff. So you're going to have to adjust that. If you stuck with that 1/4 inch seam through the whole thing, you should be fine. And I just went to the other side. Okay? So now we're ready to sew. When you're sewing something that's round, you can't do it this way. You can't sew on top of here because then you'd be fighting with what's underneath. What we're going to do is we're going to sew from in here. So let's see if I can come in a little closer. So I'm opening up my stocking. This is the right side of my stocking. I don't want to start where there's a pin or where that big seam is. So I'm going to come in. See if I can get everything out of the way. And put my presser foot down. And again, you can come up to the edge with your stocking so that you're sure to get everything in. So I'm going to go right. So my stocking and cuff and everything are at the edge of my foot. All I care about is keeping this area that I'm working with flat. The rest can just be pushed out of your way. And we're just going to sew a little bit at a time. Okay? It's not hard. It's just awkward the first time you do it. So I'm going to try to leave this open so you can see. Take my pin out. It's nice and flat still, so I can just keep right on going. Okay? When I can't go any further, I'm just going to pull this fabric forward. And trust me, I'm working with a tiny machine here. Pull the fabric forward from the back. See, I've got my finger inside of the right side of the stocking. And just turn this, I'm over here, just turn the stocking. However, it doesn't matter if it's bunchy. You just want all this area flat. So see how nice and flat it is again. Okay? Just keep this out of your way. Now, when you're stitching, you don't have to pull it way back. I'm pulling it back so you can see. And whatever you use for your seam allowance, just keep it the same way the whole way around. And I'm just if you've watched my videos enough, you know that I have to put my pins back as I go. So my pin cushion, unfortunately, is on my left, and I keep putting my arm in your way. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're nice and flat. And you notice once you're stitching and there's no pins to get in your way over here, it really turns around much easier. But you do have to have, I think you have to have the 4 pins. And now I'm coming back to where I started. And remember, I started after where the ribbon is. So now, see, I can still see my ribbon is where it belongs. And it's nice and straight, so I know the ribbon is straight inside. And that's because we stitched it. If you're going to use the stocking to hang things in, then make sure you go back over where the ribbon is, and then come back again. And that should be plenty to hold it. And what I'm aiming to get to is I want to get to where I started. I'm going to go over it exactly about a ½ inch and then lock it. And boy, I went off track, so I'm gonna stop for a second because I got a little skinny there. I think that was when I came back over the ribbon. I was watching the monitor so you could see it. Okay, so I'm going to come back. Always, if I have to pick up my stitch, and I'm always going to lock it. There we go. So I should be coming back in the same place where I started. And just do few locking stitches. And it's done. Now the stocking is all done. We just got to do some pressing. So since I have my sleeve out, let me back up a little bit. There we go. I can put this right on and I can press and just keep turning it. I don't have to have this way in because it's a little harder to turn. I'm just pressing the cuff right this minute. And do take the time to press because that really makes your sewing look better. Trust me, it really does. Now I'm here. I can get rid of that extra tag that I don't need to know that anymore, so that's gone. Now, I suggest that the first time you do this, don't cut that yet. Because if you're like me, you put the ribbon on the wrong side. Okay, so we're wrong side out. We're going to reach in, and we're going in between right side, and pulling the stocking all the way through. And now we're going to pay more attention to getting this all properly poked out here. And you're saying to me, well, what the heck? You've got this seam all on my right side. Just bear with me a few minutes more. Whenever I teach this class, everybody's a non-believer. So what happens is, and you can trim this or pink it if you want to. It really isn't going to matter because what you're doing is you're bringing this cuff down. And let me get mine situated a little more here. Let's do this first. Let's press this. And I had you let's turn it the wrong side out because I think it's going to be easier for you to see pressing it. My hands, I got big hands. Okay, and this time I'll do it with the regular press. We just want to get this nice and flattened out. So I'm reaching in and I'm pushing the seam in one direction. And I would put it on my sleeve, but I'll do it this way for those of you that probably don't have one of those. Because I just want to press this seam so it flattens out a bit. And the seam allowance is all going in the same direction. It'll just help it when you turn it. Notice I didn't go to the either edge. If I want to press this edge, I'm going to turn this. And that's why it's really always nice to have the little iron. I don't want to press these edges. I don't want to put creases in because sometimes they're hard to get out. And I have grosgrain ribbon, so that should be fine with the iron, though you got to be careful with your sparklies. That's got sparklies on it. Now let's turn it right side out. And you'd wait for it to cool. Mine's still hot. Normally you don't do that. But I'm sure you don't want to sit and wait while mine cools off. Now I can go ahead and push this out. Okay, then before I turn this down, I'm going to go ahead and press this. And with the sleeve, we want to go in as far as you can if you have the sleeve, because we're not going to turn it. What we want to do is we want to get this seam pressed nice and flat. Otherwise, it makes a little tunnel, like as it's hanging. So we want to get that nice and flat. I know we can't get down here, but I'll show you how we can do that. And then just turn it. And do the other side. I'll show you how to do this with just pressing. But you really do, you really at least want to have a smaller iron. So, because I don't want to press these sides, because this is the middle of the stocking. Remember, the seams are the sides. But I just want to press those seams as flat as I can. And you can come in and try to, if you can get in there, just give that a little press. It just makes it look nicer. Oh. If you press it from flat, just try to make sure there's no crease at the edge. So, can you see right here? If I press that down, there'll be a crease. So what I want to do is make sure that I work it as flat as I can with my fingers before I press the whole thing. Okay, now cuff comes down. And what I generally do, and again, I would put it back on the sleeve, but what I generally do is make sure that a little bit of the cuff, see, a little bit of the cuff is showing on the inside. That way your lining doesn't show on the outside. And you could take your iron and go along inside. And there we are. Oh, let me back it up a little bit. Backwards. There we are. So remember, I cut 2 of them. And again, if this feels bulky, just flatten it and give it a good press. So you can hang in either direction, whatever makes you happy. And then here's the other one. I did this one with the second fabric on the outside. And there's our little loops. And again, you can adjust your loop. If you ended up putting your loop on the wrong side, just undo stitches before and after. Take the stitches off of the ribbon, switch it to the other side, stick it back up inside. And that's why I say, when you're first doing this, don't trim that extra piece on the ribbon until you know the ribbon's where it's supposed to be. It happens. So there we go. There's 2 stockings in no time. And again, both stockings cut together, right sides together, sewn together. Turn it right side out so that the lining is right side and right side of the lining. Put your ribbon on the lining side and stitch it 1/8 of an inch. Then put your cuff over the stocking and stitch from the inside all the way around, and you're done. So you could do a bunch of these. Now, if you want to put a name on, you have to pay attention to how this is going to be. So here's our raw edge, but our fold is facing down. So it would be right side up. You would be stitching, so your name is, the bottom of the name is facing the fold. The bottom of the name is by the fold side. So if your name is here, your name is right side up with the fold at the bottom of the name and the raw edge at the top. And then you just got to make sure which way is facing out when you turn it. And a lot of times, if you're not sure, pin it, turn it, and see. I do that with a lot of things, because it's like I can't remember all that stuff. Okay? And then if you're going to embroider a lot, do one. Make your stocking and make sure it's right. And then just make a note. And then if I were you, I would keep a cuff that's embroidered but not used with your stocking instructions. So anytime you want to make a quick stocking, you don't have to go through all that thinking again. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this. And you'll work your Accuquilt dies. I think I'll do a sew along, because this is like a, regular size, I guess. But I'd like to make a bigger one. So I'm going to see if I can draw up a template and see if I can do another video, hopefully in the next week or so. Okay, thanks. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Bye-bye.